Jake Bruton, and today on the Build Show we're going to talk about our paint, prep, process, products, everything. Apparently they all begin with a P. Let's do that now. Okay, so there are a couple things that start before painters are on site. Number one, our drywall contractor has to be awesome. They have to be really good, they have to be paying attention, they have to care and put forth the effort. A lot of times we're just going to level 4, sometimes we go to a level 5. Educate yourself on those because that prep, it makes the difference in your final paint. I mean, honestly, the foundation and the framing make a difference in the final paint. If you have crooked walls, it's going to show in your paint process. So everything leading up to this has been with the purpose of having flat, straight, smooth, pretty walls and ceilings. Okay, that's number one. Number two is we supply the product. And I recommend that all builders do this. Not all painters deserve it or need it, but some do. And we got in the habit a long time ago because we realized that one of our painters was bidding one thing and then buying another thing in an effort to optimize profits. That doesn't work. If you're going to use the cheapest caulking or wood filler or paint, that's going to cause me headaches down the line and it's not going to be worth it. So we're looking for the best quality products, the best quality paint, the best quality primer, everything all the way through, and we want our painters to just give us the price for the painting process, knowing that we're using these products. We'll supply the products. They still go and pick them up. They're on our list at the paint store. They know what they're supposed to get. The guys that we've been working with now, they're fantastic. Homecraft in Columbia, Missouri, they know the products that we're using. They know that we're using premium paint. They know that we're using the better caulking for woodwork, all those things. So number two is you gotta just make sure that you're using high quality stuff because it's gonna be the difference. You can have a great painter, but if you give them garbage to work with, you're gonna get garbage back out. So our paint process is a little different than some people, so let's just walk through how it works. Step one is before we have any flooring, before we have any finishes, the windows and doors are in place, the drywall's finished, the painters come in, they sweep everything, they vacuum, they clean everything, they spray prime the entire thing. They call it white boxing. They white box the entire thing. We use a product that's a ultra spec high build primer. That high build primer gives you a much thicker build to the surface, sometimes 20 to like 25 mils, maybe even a little bit more on that surface. So you can take a level 4 and get it a lot closer to a level 5 because you're getting kind of a heavy primer coat, and them spraying it makes it lay out quite nice. And so now we have one finish over the entire surface. Now we're ready for paint because we have this thicker layer, we get a flatter paint down the line. It's kind of almost counterintuitive to think that your primer could take you from a level 4 to a level 5. It's quite possible, and it's really close. And it's not entirely a level 5, don't get me wrong. It's not the same as a really good plaster guy or a really good drywall finisher laying everything out. But man, it takes that level 4 and really starts to make it shine. It is a latex product. Everything that we're using inside of a house is generally a latex product. Most of the oil-based paints are starting to come back around, but there for a while it was like, if you make a cookie and you take the sugar and the milk and the flour and the chocolate chips out of it, it's no longer really a cookie. And there were so many regulations, especially in the state of California, that forced manufacturers to pull things out and fight for low VOC ratings and things like that, that I felt like oil-based paint kind of took a dive, and the latex market really accelerated, and they really have caught up, and there's no real reason to go oil-based on most of our projects anymore. Obviously, specific locations there may be. The other thing is, with that primer, we also use that high build primer as our ceiling paint. And we've been using that product for probably about 6 to 8 years now. We have some houses that are that old that have no yellowing on the ceilings. The reason we do that is because it lays really flat, it looks really smooth, and it is a very consistent color when they spray it and then back roll it. And the reason they say back roll, they don't back roll the walls with the primer, but they back roll the ceilings. And that's just to get that little bit of roller effect, because chances are if I ever have to fix something, I'm not going to get the sprayer back out for it. I'm going to have to do it with a roller. So they're like pre-planning. Now, that touch up on the ceiling can be a little more difficult. but in reality, that's like the least likely place that we're gonna have to do any touch-up. Nobody touches the ceiling, nobody puts finger marks on it. You're less likely to bump a piece of furniture into the ceiling than you are the wall. So it's one of our like least amount of touch-up things. So in that first trip, that white box, they're actually hitting the ceilings and the ceilings are done. So at that point, we can have our electricians come in, we can have them install ceiling mounted light fixtures. We don't generally put the fans in, but we can install light fixtures, all our puck lights, everything like that. That way the painters get a really good sense of what everything's gonna look like with the light that's gonna happen in the room. I think that's really important. Having a lot of light, both for drywall finishing and for the painters, that's an important process to make sure that they can do everything. Big European windows like we're using on this project, that allows us to, this room's got a ton of light and there's no light fixture in here because it's a ceiling fan. So after that white box, ceilings are done, painters leave. The trim guys come in, they hang millwork and doors, the cabinets get installed, there's the electricians, like I just said. The house gets really close to being finished and we still have walls that are just in primer. We have our flooring in, we have our tile work in, we have sometimes our shower enclosure, our glass even. And all that's left at this point, besides painting, is countertops, plumbing trim out, and a little bit of electrical trim out, and maybe some firing of the HVAC system. So then we can have everything done except for those things, come back in and final paint everything. And they go through, they spray all of our trim and millwork. Obviously, if it's a clear, that's not the same as a paint process, but if it's a paint process, paint grade, everything gets sprayed. They spray all of the trim around the doors, the windows. They pull the doors and hardware off and they stack them in one of the rooms with the tall ceiling. They spray everything in the house. We don't haul things away. We leave our shelf and rod brackets off of all of our closets. The trim carpenters will come back and put those on after we're painted. And all the trim and millwork gets sprayed. So we've sprayed the walls, we've sprayed the ceiling, we back rolled the ceiling, we've sprayed the trim. Everything else, all the walls get brush and roller. It's just easier. They mask off the top edge of the trim to keep anything from splashing down on it. And then everything gets brushed and rolled. Everything gets what looks like a final paint at this stage. They go ahead and hang the doors back. They've tracked where they go. They put them back on. In this house's case, we're going to swap the hinge color while we're here because they shipped us with the wrong hinges. But they're down already, so we just let them put the new ones back on. And then we finish the house. They'll pull the paper. They'll clean up after themselves. It'll be a completely clean place. We'll get backsplash tile, countertops, plumbing trim out, and the final electrical. Right before we turn the house over, we'll walk through one last time and they'll touch anything up that like the countertop guys mashed into or anything like that. It makes it so that it's very simple to do that final touch up. There's not much left in the house after they get done painting. And we really think this process is best. Our ending process, my final tip for paint and prep is your binder that has, that you turn over to the client at the end of the job. It needs a page that has every paint color and what wall in the house it's on. We also keep those records at our paint store. They keep them digitally for us, so you can tell them your address and they'll tell you what paint's been used, what year it was bought, who bought it, those sorts of things. It's really convenient for us to do touch-ups. We do leave paint with the clients, but we try not to leave more than a gallon of anything because we don't want them to have to store 5-gallon buckets. We don't take any paint off of site. It's not ours. We're not going to take it to our shop and store it for them. But we can find a space in their environment where they can have it on site. Every can is clearly labeled, so even if they lose their binder and the paint store burns down, we can still get that can remixed and be able to paint. Now, I do tell clients one thing, and that's if you're not gonna have us come and do any touch-up, like you poke a hole in the wall, you fix it yourself, you need to paint floor to ceiling, wall to wall, corner to corner, that whole thing, because then it's likely to match. If you think about how paint comes into a corner, those two sides never look the same. So that's why insurance companies tell you trim to ceiling, corner to corner, paint the whole wall, because they're not going to look the same either way. But if you paint the whole thing, you won't be able to tell where the patch is. So buy the supplies, white box it out first, stage your painters at the right time, and then be able to do that touch up at that last second when you haven't even really left that much stuff to get damaged. And then you touch up and then leave the paint with the clients, but don't leave them too much. Don't forget to subscribe to the newsletter. There are new people joining every week this month. We're adding a bunch of contributors. We're excited to have all these folks online with us. There's a lot of learning to be done, and there's a lot of good information being shared. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram. It's jake.bruton. Thanks for watching.